Hello there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. Today I'm going to share some stenciling techniques with you, but I also am going to be sharing a fun new product from Simon Says Stamp called Stamp and Cut Sheets. These are shrink sheets, very much like Shrinky Dinks, that you will probably remember from years and years past. But these are perfect for not only stamping, but you can also die cut with them. There's a lot of things you can do with these stamp and cut sheets, and I'll explain what I did with them to create the card that I'm sharing today. But keep in mind that these stamp and cut sheets are going to be able to be used for so many different things beyond what I'm using them for today. So there's a lot of new products in today's video. All of them are centered around Simon Says Stamp's new Cozy Hugs collection, which is available over at simonsaystamp.com. And I'm going to be using many products from that release. One of which is this new Snowfall and Banks stencil. I love this stencil because it has a lot of ways that you can use it. I've already put my paper through one of the snowfall slits, and I'm masking off some of the snowballs along the top of the stencil because I only want to ink blend the snowy hills first. What's fun about this stencil is you can slip your paper into the different snowy hills and get different layers of snowy banks that allow you to create a really cool dimensional scene. I'm using some ink from Simon Says Stamp in the twilight color to create a really nice purple haze for these snowy banks. And I'll just slip my paper through another one of those slits to create another layer. I ended up doing a total of 3 to create this really nice assortment of snowy banks that are overlapping together. I've removed the stencil for the moment, and I'm just going to ink blend a sky in the background of my card. For this, I'm using Again ink. This is another Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively saturated ink color. And I chose something that was a little bit more on the non-traditional route for a snowy scene. Pairing these teals and purples together were a really neat color combination and gave me a very unique palette to work with. I'm bringing in another stencil now. This is the Birch Tree stencil. This is actually a stencil I designed for Simon Says Stamp last year, but it's a great staple that you can use for a variety of different cards, not just snowy scenes like this, but you could use it for summer scenes, anything that's woodsy. You can use this stencil for a scene. So I'm going to use this to create some tree layers that are going to be behind the snow that's going to go on top of this entire card. I'm using that same Again ink to create a tone-on-tone effect with these birch trees. Throughout this card, I'm using Simon Says Stamp very, very low tack tape to hold everything together, to mask certain areas off, and create the look that I'm going for. Once I have all of my stenciling completed with all my different trees, I'm ready to add the snow on top. So I'm going to bring that Snowfall and Banks stencil in once more, and some stencil butter. This is Platinum Stardust stencil butter from the Crafter's Workshop, and I applied that through the snow of the stencil. This is giving me a really pretty silvery finish for my snow, and it looks absolutely beautiful on top of these trees and pairs up really well with the non-traditional color scheme. To match up with that, I'm going to stamp a sentiment from the new Simple Holiday Greetings stamp set, and I stamped it with embossing ink onto some lavender cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. With some silver embossing powder, I'm going to sprinkle that on top and heat set it, so that way that'll match up nicely with the silvery snow that we have in our card. This sentiment I'll just cut down into a simple little strip and attach this onto the right side of my card. Now the panel that I'm going to be creating for this card is slightly smaller than an A2 card, so that way I can mat it onto an A2 card and have a little bit of a border around the edges, and you'll see how I do that. Here's where I have my top folding A2 card, so you can see that the card panel is just slightly smaller. Alright, now for the fun. I'm going to bring in the Glistening Snowflakes stamp set, and there also are coordinating dies for this, which I will use to create the embellishments that I'm going to make with the stamp and cut sheets. So I have those snowflakes, 3 different pieces from that stamp set. I have a piece of the stamp and cut material in my MISTI here, so that way I can stamp on it with some StazOn ink. A solvent ink is the best ink to use with the stamp and cut sheets because it's going to sit on top of the surface of the material very well. I'm going to stamp this with that white ink, and I have a really nice, beautiful impression that I can now go ahead and die cut. This ink dries very quickly because it's a solvent, which is another reason why it's such a great option for this particular material. You want something that's going to dry and dry very quickly, so that way you don't have to worry about smudging your beautiful stamped image. So now that I've stamped it, I've die cut all of those snowflakes with the coordinating dies. This material die cuts very easily. And I'm going to heat set each of these snowflakes so that way they shrink. They're going to shrink to about 20% of their original size, so they shrink quite a bit. They're going to kind of curl up on themselves a little bit as you start to set them, but they will flatten out and you just let them go ahead and fall out into their final flat shape, and you're going to have these beautiful embellishments that are so cool to add to your cards. I'm using Simon Says Stamp's PETs, Pawsitively Everything tools, to help hold those little teeny tiny snowflakes in place as I set them. They have a tendency to want to roll around. Because they're so small, it's a little hard to sometimes hold them. I find that the PETs are a great way to help kind of grip them in place a little bit. Once you've let those cool, I just used a bit of glossy accents to glue those fun little snowflakes onto my card, and they were a beautiful embellishment to add to this finished piece. I love how this card turned out, not only with the fun stenciling that we did, but also the addition of those beautiful snowflakes made possible by the Stamp and Cut shrink sheets from Simon Says Stamp were the perfect embellishment to add for this frosty card. I hope you were inspired by today's project using these new products from the Simon Says Stamp Cozy Hugs collection. If you're watching this on my blog or on my YouTube channel, definitely check out the links below, either at the blog post or the video description, for all of the products that I used today. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you are a subscriber, I thank you so much for watching my videos and tuning in for each project that I share. It means a lot to me, and I thank you so much for your support. Thanks again, friends. I will be back soon, and have a fabulous day.